I look like a Ninja Turtle or something.
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay. All right, we got some people coming on. Hi, everyone. It's Dianelli with the museum team. Welcome to today's live artist talk session. We're here with John Bailey on site. And as you can see, John and I are both keeping our social distance, wearing our mask, staying safe. But we wanted to reintroduce you to John, our fellow residents. And John's going to tell us a little bit about his work, what he's been doing while we were all in quarantine, and what we're doing now. All right, we're going to switch it, see how we change it to John. There we
Ciao.
go.
My name is John William Bailly. I'm a French Miamian. I am a professor in the Honors College at FIU. I'm an artist represented by the LNS Gallery here in Miami, and a artist in residence fellow at the Deering Estate. It's been a savior having the residency this year, because I've been able to come here and enjoy the beautiful flora and fauna of Miami. This is my studio here. This is the Powerhouse Studio, so named because it was where the electrical power for the Deering Estate was. My work is about exploring a sense of identity as it relates to the landscape and to the culture and history of a region. The Deering Estate is perfect for me for that, in the sense that there are archaeological remains here that date back 10,000 years, but there are also there's a stone house, a 20th century stone house, which is essentially a Spanish structure that was recreated in Miami. And this, in a sense, transatlantic voyage and transatlantic dialogue is essential to my work, because although I live in Miami and I feel tied to the land of Miami, my original cultural roots are in France. So this kind of mix of these different things is an important part of what I explore in my work. And so that's what I do here. So let's go in and see the studio.
All right, let's do it.
So you can see here, the Powerhouse is listed in the property of the National Register of Historic Places from the Department of Interior. And it's what I call home. I'm smiling, but you can't.
All right.
All right, so an active studio for an artist is always messy. If you see a clean studio, the person's not working. You can see here, I have flat files that are just full of drawings. These are mangrove drawings that I do. You can see here, there are drawings that I do of different cities. Here's the Venice that I love. And I do these on location. They all have to be in situ, because the wind, the smell, the heat, the weather, all of this plays a part in how I draw. And they are an attempt to capture not only how something looks, but how one experiences it. And then I take those drawings and I turn them into larger paintings. These paintings here specifically relate to the Deering Estate. And by the way, if you have questions, you can post them in the chat and I'll answer them as we go. So these paintings here were done essentially over a 1.5 year painting time, but essentially over years of research. And you can see the palette, the blues that you see in there are blues that I see from the sea and the sky mixing as one in Miami. One reflects on the other, but they also merge together on the landscape. So I like to call these Miami blues. And this painting in particular here is about the creation of a new identity as Europe and the Americas come together. This one is particularly about Venezuela, the name Venezuela being derived from Venice. And essentially Venezuela means Little Venice. And here you can see the city of Venice landing on an indigenous person that has lived in the land that is called Venice, that is essentially the land that becomes Venezuela, has lived there, but he's never heard of Venice or Venezuela, and it lands on him like a spaceship. And at that moment, when they tell him that the land that he has lived on for centuries is now called Venezuela, his entire world explodes. And here you can see his hands trying to contain the world, but it explodes, and there's a Fibonacci spiral of flowers that spin out. You can see his hands here in this explosion, and his face is somewhat hidden back here. And then this is the map of Venice.
So we have a question. What type of paint do you use?
So I use oil paint, and I use fine quality oil paint. There's two different brands that I use, RGH and Yapka, that are handmade oil paints. And I like oil because it enables me to create a greater variety of texture and to include different mediums to get transparency, matte and glaze as well, gloss as well.
And what is your favorite medium to create with?
So I had a great painter at Yale. His name was Jake Berteau. And he made me do a mix of 1 part Damar varnish, 1 part sand oil, and 1 part turpentine. And it gives this wonderful viscosity to the paint, to the oil paint. And you can see some of the paint is really quite textured. If you look here, I can kind of grab it. And so that is a result of having some medium mixed in it.
Awesome. And what do we have over here?
So, well, you can see also here, if you come over here,
okay.
These are really important to me because just the way that I go, at FIU, my responsibility is I'm the faculty director of Italy, France, and Spain study abroad. And I go and I look at all the artwork there, but I also draw all the cities in person, and that's how then they get incorporated into my work. So these are all drawings that I've done here at the Deering Estate. And you can see the one here, this is Chicken Key, and I do it while I'm in a canoe and actually drifting on the water. And then the plant that I love the most in Miami, because I don't see them in Europe, are the mangroves. And to me, their roots are in a sense holding the land of Miami and the culture of Miami and the identity of Miami together. At the Deering Estate here, there's also a Tequesta burial mound. When you come here, when the Deering Estate fully reopens, it is open to the public now, the outdoors areas, but when they start doing tours again, you can walk out to one of the only one of 2 unexcavated Tequesta burial mounds. And so that there are actually Tequestas buried in here. Tequestas are the people that lived in the land that is now called Miami before the Spanish settled it. And then here you can see some of they're basically charcoal and ink drawings where I enlarge these ones that I've done out in the field into larger drawings that then I'll transfer into these. And when I get to the larger ones, they tend to abstract quite a bit more, so that the mangroves here kind of become these roots and these serpents, like the serpents of Laocoon in the great Greek myth that hold these people, that in a sense capture these people. Here, America is embodied as a woman, and in a sense, it's a last judgment composition where, in the end, America is the one that conquers Europe, but here America is a woman, and out of her come flowers, the vegetation, and the mangroves. And if you wanted a lighthearted example of how really it's America that conquered Europe and not Europe that conquered America, chocolate's from the Americas. All right? So what would the world be without chocolate?
Exactly. I do have a question.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more on the part that cities and maps play in your work?
So I love abstractions, and I love systems of thought. Maps are fascinating to me because they are mostly two-dimensional images, very flat. There's not even the use of light. They're simple lines, squares, but they're able to help us in these very abstract drawings to navigate the world. And that to me is a fascinating concept, the way that we can do that. In cities themselves, I love the individual characteristics of cities because I think they reflect the people and the history of places. So these are essential in how that idea of abstracting a real world place into a very simple drawing, but then also capturing the unique nature of a place in a work is essential to me.
Nice. All right.
And this painting here is the Cutler Fossil Site. The Cutler Fossil Site is an archaeological site at the Deering Estate in which they found human remains from 10,000 years ago. It's the oldest archaeological site in southeast Florida. It's not open to the public, but it's an incredibly important site. And Jennifer Tisthammer, the director of the Deering Estate, sometimes leads groups out there. And I was able to go out there, and some of the remains that they found were of a female. And I thought of how it's so interesting that the early deities and cultures and the first images in artwork are of females, whether we think of the sculpture from Willendorf or other ones. And then I thought of Botticelli's great painting of the birth of Venus. And so I painted, in a sense, a Venus of Miami that rises out of this Cutler fossil site here. And so it's, in a sense, bringing to life the history of Miami. So what I wanted to show you is what I do here, which I work in my studio. Oh, let's look at one more. These up here. This is another really important series that's very different. It's really important for me in my work that we remember people that are erased from history. In a sense, art serves often as, hey, you forgot us, you forgot this, and let's take a look at it. When the Deering Estate, when Charles Deering was having the Deering Estate built, they actually dredged canals as well, and a channel from the Deering Estate. Most of the workers were Afro-Bahamians or African Americans, and they were working in this is early 20th century, in quite abysmal conditions. And 5 of them actually died. And I think it's really important to try to remember them. And so these 5 paintings here, they're invented because I did not have portraits of the people that actually died, but they're the 5 workers that died building the Deering Estate that I love so much. And I think it's important to remember them.
That's awesome.
So what I do is I'll work here. Oh, and this was the catalog from the exhibition recently at the LNS Gallery. The LNS Gallery is in Coconut Grove, and I work with them a lot. They're my family. So I take my bag, and I take my pad, my drawing pad, a neat thick watercolor paper, and then I take my pencils and my erasers. I use mechanical pencils because to sharpen out in the tropical hardwood is difficult. And I go like this, and I get my water, and then I go on an excursion. And so let's go.
Let's go.
It's a little windy today, so you might get some side. Do you have any other questions, Hassan?
No, we have just Julia Saves, who wants to thank you for making your work and sharing art history with us.
Oh, thank you.
She's very appreciative. We've had some waves, some love. Meg Wallace says she loves your description of the mangrove roots holding the land of Miami together. That was a really wonderful explanation. That's what we got so far. So everyone, we're going to be heading down to the bay, to the boat basin. I know one spot that a lot of people love, and we always love seeing John here and seeing where he's going to go exploring next and what he's going to create each day while here. John likes to share a lot of his work in progress on social media. If you're not following him already, you should. He comes out with some amazing things each day.
So this is my ritual. Oh, there's our director, Jennifer Tisthammer.
Running away.
So I'll get my bag after I've painted indoors, and I come outdoors, which is what I paint about. And so here, this is a wonderful spot, not just for the Deering Estate, but for Miami, because you have the flora of Miami, this unique, indigenous, authentic landscape. This is what Miami is, and there are very few places you can see the authentic Miami. And then you have essentially almost a pioneer house, one of the early houses that people that Europeans that settled in the land that is now called Miami. This is called the Richmond Cottage. And so, and then you have the stone house that was built by Charles Deering. And this is really European. You can even see it's Islamic in the window. So that's, you know, it's Spanish, southern Spain. But it's made out of the oolite rock that is native to Miami. So it's really a merging of these two cultures, which is what my painting's about. So I come here and I get excited, and I walk through here.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Someone wants to know, do you draw during animals? Like, have you spotted any of the animals that that inspire you in any of your work?
Yes, but they won't sit still for me, even though I ask them all the time. I say, go for turtle, go for tortoise, stop.
Yeah. Maybe in a different language?
Manatee, stop. So that I'll have to work from a photograph.
Okay.
But so I come here, I love this. You can see it's a spectacular view.
Yeah.
And then right here, this, seeing the ocean,
boom,
seeing the sea, is that, you can see that the light, the colors here, the blues, and the way that there's such a variety of blues is really important.
This is by far my favorite spot on the estate. Just the weather, the wind, the nature, the essence of this spot is fantastic. John, what's your favorite spot on the estate, would you say?
Mine is my favorite spot in every place that I go to, whether it's a city or it's a natural area, is the spot where I don't know where I'm at when I'm lost. And I gotta find my way out. When I'm disoriented, that's when I love it.
Well, you are very familiar with the estate. Is there a spot here that makes you
Yeah, so I have to say that ultimately it is the Cutler Fossil Site, because it's so important, and there are very few places where you can feel connected with the past of Miami, because we tend to build, and without looking back, and there you can really look back, and it's in the middle of a beautiful vegetation. So the Cutler Fossil Site for me is the most beautiful. But I do love the boat basin. This is my picnic. This is my lunch.
Yeah.
My lunch.
And everyone, I know it's really windy right now, so if for some reason you can't hear John, please let us know, and we'll make sure to repeat what he's saying. But it is pretty gorgeous out here today.
Yeah. Well, I had a professor here.
Oh, okay.
I had a professor named Bernie Chait at Yale, and he used to paint the seascape, but in New England, and he would bake potatoes and put them in his pockets. So he'd hold the potatoes while he wasn't painting as a break to warm up his hands. And then one day it was sunny, and somebody came up to him and said, "Oh, it's a nice day to paint." And he grumpily said, "Every day's a good day to paint." But here, whether it's sunny and calm or storming and windy, it's beautiful in its own way each time. It's never the same twice. There are different kinds of days, different temperature. It's absolutely beautiful. And you've got to really appreciate to see the difference every day that you do.
It really is.
So what I'll do now is, this is a great spot to draw. I'm looking here, so I take my pad, and then I'll
This next week they say they can't.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take my pad, I go around to the different spots of the Deering estate, and then I just start drawing. And so that's what I do, and I hope that you come to the Deering estate, you come visit us, and if you're here, knock on my studio door. If we can open up again, I'd love to welcome you and explain the works there.
Okay, so thank you, John. We do have a few more questions. Someone's asking, is there any manatees? Not right now. I don't think.
They're hidden.
They're hidden. And then someone wants you to talk a little bit more about the
the sculpt. Do you mean the Fibonacci sculpture?
I'm not sure what he means.
Yeah, there's a sculpture, a Fibonacci sculpture on the left side, the
Oh,
north
yeah,
end.
yeah, yeah.
So that's That's a workaholic art by a different artist, but it's really neat because the Fibonacci Spiral is something that manifests itself constantly in nature, and especially in shells. And so I believe, not speaking for the artist, but I would hypothesize that the artist wanted to draw a comparison between math and nature.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, John. This was from the Powerhouse Studio of the estate. Everyone, just a reminder, we are open to the public, just our outdoor spaces for now. Hopefully soon we will be able to open the homes for everyone in the near future. Please stay tuned to our virtual tours, our Daring at Home and Science at Home. And please follow John. He really does create some amazing things. And his travels even within the Daring Estate and outside the Daring Estate are quite fascinating. The way he brings community together is wonderful. So thank you, John, for everything you do.
Thank you.
All right.
Ciao, ciao.